If you are a right-wing influencer and you want to protect Trump from this hush money trial, at least in terms of the court of public opinion, this is probably the most effective strategy. What you want to do is, assuming that you actually think he's guilty, right? But you want your audience to think otherwise because you want him to win, or you want to get views from people that like him. So you want to make them feel better. This is good for engagement, right? If you're putting out content that a lot of people want to see, which is people who love Trump want to hear that he's not guilty, he's being persecuted, right? So if you believe he's actually guilty, then this is the best strategy for you, right? First of all, you can just really not talk about it much at all. You can put your piece out that, you think he's not guilty, it's nonsense, it's political, whatever, and then talk about other stuff, right? Try to find stuff about Biden did some crazy thing, or look at the economy, look at inflation, or some crazy leftist said some crazy thing somewhere, or something is woke, or actually DEI is better now for engagement. That is one approach. But if you are a really experienced propagandist and manipulator, and you believe that you have the skills to take it to a higher level of manipulation of your audience, and you believe Trump is guilty, this is what I recommend that you do, and I think this would be very, very effective. So you can talk about it, but what you want to do is talk about everything else other than the substance of the case, right? Not all of your audience are idiots, right? You're bound to have a decent amount of people that are watching you that you can manipulate them because of their emotional, thought process, right? They're not thinking too deeply, and if you're feeding the right kind of stuff. But if you put too much information in front of them in terms of the substance of the case, a good amount of them are going to see through it, and that's dangerous. So what you want to do is, if you want to talk a lot about it to make the appearance that you're not hiding from it, what you want to do is talk about every single thing that you can other than the substance, right? You don't want to talk about much about, for example, what is the crime, right? One strategy, pretend like you don't even know what the crime is. They're not even clear what the crime is. Like, what's exactly the crime? Like, that's something you've probably seen some people utilizing, and that's very effective, because right there you're crushing it. I mean, if we don't even know what the crime is, right, and it's all ambiguous, that sounds kind of shady, right? So if your audience doesn't dig in, right, you can shut down a lot of stuff just by simply tainting things in that way, by just saying we don't know what the crime is, right? So you definitely want to do stuff like that, where you pretend like we don't know what the crime is. Obviously, the crime was clearly stated from the get-go, because obviously to start the whole process, they needed to bring charges, and the charges had to specifically state what the crime is, right? So that's obviously very clear. But for an audience that is emotionally invested in the idea that he's innocent, this can be very effective, because they're not going to want to look into it. You just need to feed them stuff that shields them from things that are uncomfortable, and they'll just eat it all up. So you can, again, pretend like you don't know what the crime is, right? Or otherwise, don't talk about what the crime is. Don't talk about what the actual charges are, right? Just focus a lot of your time on a characterization of it. And saying that it's political is very effective, because you have a lot of other people also saying as well. You have a bunch of people that are saying the same thing, it must be true, kind of thing. So you can add to that echo chamber, just add more fuel to the fire of it's political, it's political, it's political, it's political, it's political, right? Never really talking about what the actual charges are, right? That alone, like, forget about the substance of the trial. Just putting that off the table of not letting your audience know what the actual charges are, what the actual crime is, that can do tremendous. That's just a tremendously effective strategy, right? So number one, so again, don't talk about the substance of the trial. Don't talk about what Trump actually did or is charged with doing, right? You definitely don't want to talk about, the day-to-day with the trial, in terms of, what the witnesses revealed, any kind of revelation that the witnesses revealed that makes Trump look bad, or, supports what the charges are. So the charges are that Trump did X, Y, and Z, and someone comes in and says that this is true because I heard him say it. Somebody else comes in and said, yes, I believe it's true because of he had a track record. Don't talk about that stuff. Just completely ignore it. So, while liberal media is going to latch onto this stuff, any little thing they're going to latch onto it, no matter how small, just don't talk about that stuff at all. So your audience is not going to know about a lot of the sort of bombshell, witness statements or anything at all that supports the charges, right? Just ignore that completely. So number one, pretend not to know what the charges are. Pretend that the charges are not being cleared. We don't even know what the crime is, right? Ignore any, a lot of things that we're learning. So, for example, that secret recording that Trump made. I mean, if you're a really top-level propagandist, you might play a little bit of it or mention it. So that's really, really effective. So even the most skeptical person in your audience, hearing that, you can sort of, back them off and be like, no, Trump's good, man. Don't believe the hype, right? And then the other thing is, again, don't talk about, anything that we're learning in terms of that makes Trump look bad. Just completely ignore it. Keep focusing on, we don't know what the crime is. What is the crime? Keep saying it's political. You don't have to back that up in terms of evidence that it's political. Just keep saying it over and over again. It's political. It's political. We don't know what the crime is. Don't talk about any new bombshell things. Don't talk about the substance of the case, and then pay particular attention. Look for yourself and watch your right-wing social media feeds for anything that can be used to sow doubt, right? So a lot of information being talked about or discovered in the trial, you won't discuss that. But if anything comes that lets people believe, anything that can be used to be like, is this really legit or not? That you want to talk about. Talk a lot about that, right? So for example, anything that suggests that the jury might not be honest, or the jury is biased, the judge is biased. So anything like that. If you can find any information on the jurors that connect them to, like, maybe they supported Black Lives Matter, or they posted something online, saying that Trump sucks or whatever, anything like that, just that's what you want to focus on, right? And the beauty of this is that these are things that there is validity to them, right? I mean, you really don't want a partisan jury, right? Because a partisan jury, might be biased against Trump and not give him a fair trial. But if you don't believe that's the case, and you believe he's actually getting a fair trial and he's actually guilty, you can use the fact that a partisan jury would be a bad thing to sort of distract your audience. So just put out there, without any real strong evidence, right? Because everyone's got a political sort of, you're on one side or the other. You have your ideology. So any jury is going to have an ideology. So, I mean, for example, in the Florida case, you don't think there's going to be people who like Trump or voted for Trump, or GOP people that are going to be in that jury? So is that jury no good, right? Or is it only no good when the jury might be biased against Trump? If they're biased towards him, that's okay. But if they're biased against, play a little games like that. But just keep talking about the jury potentially being whatever, the judge, any family members, or the judge donated to the Democrat, or the judge is a Democrat. That's what you want to talk about, right? Just keep talking about that. It's partisan, it's political, it's partisan, it's political. What is the crime? We don't know what the crime is. One jury was a Black Lives Matter person, or the judge is a this whatever judge, right? And just that's it. Just keep talking about that, and stay away from the stuff that I said to stay away from in the beginning of the video. Just don't even talk about that stuff. If you have a really partisan audience, they're not going to really be watching liberal media to get those details that you're hiding from them. And even for the ones who do listen to liberal media, I mean, hopefully, if you're a really good propagandist, you've already sort of brainwashed them into, anything from liberal media is all lies and blah, blah, blah. I mean, MSNBC is definitely pro DNC, right? But that doesn't mean that everything they say is just a bunch of lies and nonsense. However, if you keep talking about them and attacking them and attacking them and attacking them, your audience can just get in this mindset of just anything they say, dismiss it, especially if they're saying things that are uncomfortable. So if the idea that Trump is guilty is uncomfortable for you, then MSNBC is not really going to be able to effectively, show your audience things that show he's guilty, because it'll be easier for them to accept your narrative that you're pushing out as a right-wing commentator, as opposed to accepting what MSNBC is saying. So if MSNBC puts out any evidence that actually is solid in terms of making Trump look bad, they can just in one ear and out the other, and it's liberal media, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just keep on the strategy that I'm talking about, that I've mentioned here, and I think you will effectively, protect Trump from, being exposed. And it's really not probably about protecting Trump. It's more about if you want to maximize your revenue, right? The way you maximize revenue is by maximizing engagement, and part of that is from delivering a product that your customers want. What does a conservative audience want to hear? They want to hear that their side is better. They want to hear that they're the good ones and they're making the right decisions, and it's their political opponents that are bad. So being that Trump is the guy on the right, you don't have any other options at this point. He must be protected, because it's an uncomfortable feeling for your audience to see that Trump is a fraud or he lied or whatever it is. So to shield them from that would be financially beneficial for you. So again, it's not really about protecting Trump per se. I mean, some of you may want to protect Trump, but if it's really a business thing, then the proper business thing is to shield your audience from uncomfortable truths about Trump and the trial. And I think the strategy I've laid out here, in my view, is pretty effective. So if you've lasted this long in this video and you are a conservative, I want you to think for a second, are any of the people that you listen to in right-wing media utilizing the strategy that I recommended here? Are they doing exactly what I laid out for you? Or are they proving me wrong and doing the opposite, actually talking about the substance, actually giving you updates on the trial, and mentioning not only things that support Trump, but also things that make Trump look bad, right? Are they giving you the full truth, or just giving you a one-sided thing? And then I'll leave it to you to decide whether, based on what they're doing, why you think they're doing it, and what you think they're up to, and whether they're doing the same kind of thing with other topics as well. This is Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.